Within this video, you're going to learn how to create a user, apply their roles, the module permissions, and their authorization groups. When you log on to C2 Treasury, you will see the home screen. If you go to the Welcome button, drop down here and go to Security Settings, it will take you to User Security. Under User Security, you select User Management. This will take you to the screen to add the new users. Throughout C2 Treasury, you will see red boxes. These are mandatory and have to be completed. For the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to create a new user called Paul Smith. I'm going to use his first initial and his surname. It is completely up to you in your company how you set up your usernames. And as he is a new user, I have to create the new password for him, which I suggest is given to the user separately to their username and the URL site details. You have some password help here. If any of these are crossed out, then you won't be able to use that password. I'm going to add in the user's email address so they get the email to let them know that they have been added to C2 Treasury. And if I wanted to, I could clone a user. For the purpose of this exercise, I'm not going to. I'm going to create that user. And all users will be displayed at the bottom of this page. There's our new user. The next step for that user is to give him the roles. The roles is not what access that user has, but more what can that user do within C2 Treasury in the sense of, are they admin? Can they reset passwords? Can they release payments? The modules permissions is where you provide that person with the ability to add, amend, delete, or view only. The roles are different. These are specific roles to that user. You can either add the roles individually to the user here, or you can create a group of roles, which is very handy for different departments. So you can do a group of roles for cash managers, treasurers, payment releases. Makes it a lot easier than ticking the individual roles each time. A quick explanation of these. This is to delete the user. Once a user has history though, it would be very difficult. The system won't allow you to delete it. So only if that user has not got history attached. History, i.e. activity to their username. If a person leaves, you can lock the user. The user could lock themselves out by too many password tries, so this is how you unlock them. This is the roles which I'm going to go through. And the forget button is GDPR related, to forget all of the user's details, but not their actions. If the user asks you to delete any private information about them. You can also unlock a user here. If they were locked, it would be a tick here, and you'd have to untick it to unlock them. The roles. There is an explanation here next to all the roles. A few are not completed. We're going through that currently now. I suggest that you read through each one of the roles and what they do and what they mean. There is a user guide which your consultant can provide to you. And if you're still unsure, call TreasuryXpress and we will explain them to you. I'm just going to explain a few to you now. just so you know what to do the first time you set up your users. There is a technical and a company technical. We always recommend you at least have one technical within a company, usually sitting with IT. This technical person is able to do anything in relation to users, create them, etc., without any dual authorization. The company technical has the dual authorization for users and payment signers attached. A company technical can never see a technical. Therefore, it's imperative that at least one technical user is set up, because that technical person overrides the company technical. There's also a reviewer role. The reviewer role is a four-eyed process where certain modules throughout C2 Treasury, e.g. creating an account, the reviewer can go in and four-eye check the account details. Once that account is created though, it is live. It doesn't have to be four-eye checked by the reviewer to be live within the system. But users and payment signers do have to be authorized if company technical is selected by at least two company technicals that are set up as users. There's a lot more detail for the roles within the user guide, which your consultant can go through with you. Just wanted to point out it was imperative to have at least one technical set up, and that technical cannot see, the company technical set up will never be able to see the technical. Okay. So that's where you can set them up individually, or you can set up a group of roles. Let's set up a group of roles. For the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to create a cash management role, a group of roles, and then add. Following the tabs along, group access roles, I'm going to add the roles to the group by selecting configure. It's as simple as going through the individual roles, ticking them and adding. So for the cash manager, I'm going to give them financial admin, payment releasing, cash manager, file viewer, and add those roles to the group. This is just an example for a cash manager. There are many other roles that possibly cash managers could use. This is just an example. So once you've added the roles, that's it, it's done. I can delete them as well by selecting and deleting the roles from the group. Finished. And then you've got to add the user to the group by following the tab User Group. You select the individual by editing and selecting the group that they are allowed to use the group of roles, and press Apply. If I had selected roles separately on the User Management tab for Paul Smith and then given him the group roles, there would have been a mismatch of role assignments. Therefore, I suggest if you have given the individual user individual roles, but now you want to give them a group of roles, clear all of their roles first before applying the group. Okay, so going back to user management, we are now going to see all the roles that Paul Smith has by going to the end here. Underneath these roles, you can see what he has. It doesn't tell you the group name, but it tells you the roles that he has. Okay. So the second and possibly the most imperative set up for our users is their authorization groups. Without an authorization group, those users cannot see any data within C2 Treasury. If you go to security settings, go to authorization groups, I'm going to call this authorization group accounts level. And here I'm going to select account level. What's the difference? Company group level is the overall company group that you set up C2 Treasury for, which means that that user would be able to view every single account set up within that company group level. Company level is the business units. I would be able to select certain business units that user is allowed to view the accounts underneath those business units. Or I'm just going to choose at account level. Sporadically, I can choose a section of accounts across the company levels. Selection of accounts at account level, and then add. How do I assign the accounts or the business units or the company group to the new group I've just created? You can either access the list here or across the tab here. I'm going to configure next to my new group name and select the account or accounts that were within that group. That's it, that's done. Now I'm going to add my user to that authorization group by selecting Paul Smith, edit, selecting the accounts level and edit. If we go back to security settings, user management, and look at Paul Smith, we can now see that he has the authorization group at account level. What's left? His module permissions. I can now do this at an individual level here, where I say that Paul Smith, for every single module within C2 Treasury, is able to create new, he is allowed to update what he's done, and delete and view. I might decide that he's not allowed to delete, or he can delete certain things. I might decide that he's not allowed to update certain modules, or he's not allowed to view, update, apply new, or delete. It really depends on what you want that user to be able to physically action. Are they allowed to create a new cash flow? Are they allowed to delete that cash flow, update that cash flow, or just view the cash flow? Once you've created what you want for the individual user, you select Post Modifications. If we go back to security settings and go to module permissions, this is where we can select module permissions for a group of people. If you go to the module permission group, You can select one or a handful of users and select the individual access that they are allowed. And then press Add. Back to security settings, back to my user management. Our new user, Paul Smith, now has his accounts level authorization group, his permissions. I wanted to click on that even though it was great to show to you that I can go back to the permissions that I have posted modification on. And he's also got his new roles. If other users already set up are company technicals, they will have to go and authorize Paul Smith. 2 of them will have to go and authorize him before he can log on. That is how you set up a new user, apply the roles, his permissions, and his authorization group.